Welcome, everybody, to Two Chaps, Many Cultures. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good middle of the night, wherever in the world you are. My name is Christian Hufale, also known as the Culture Guy. And that awesome-looking fellow to the other side of me, I'm never sure which way to point. That is my dear friend, the cultural mentor Brett Parry in Chicago, and we already have a fan question for Brett coming out of the abyss of the interwebs by a gentleman called Tony Sheridan. He's asking, who cuts Brett's hair? I've been wondering this all my life, so please enlighten us.
These are hard-hitting questions we have to field in this day and age. And it's usually from Australians who think they're so bloody hilarious.
I was laughing a lot over here while the reel was running. So
That's right.
it a do-it-yourself job? Do you let your daughter do it? Do you have a professional, or are they all the same?
A bit of both. Bit of a couple of those things. I am a professional and I do it myself.
There we go. See? Tony,
I'm not a professional hair cutter, but I'm just a professional of some sort every now and again. I think I'm a professional.
Tony, you wish you had that kind of barber. I think we settled it. By the way, I cut my wife's hair, or I trimmed my wife's hair the other day on our front porch while people were walking by. It was hilarious. People were taking appointments. That's how good I was. I'm not kidding. I actually should have taped this. All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is Two Chaps. 1, 2, right? That's easy. And we talk about many cultures, and this may be national cultures, this may be regional cultures, or professional cultures, barber culture maybe, or I have a barber of front yards out there now, so you might get a little bit of a sound in the background. That's the lawn care people. They have their own culture. So there are multiple forms that culture can take, and before we make assessments, or before we make judgments, or before we label these cultures, we want to make sure that we know enough about them. And when Brett and I talked this morning, what are we going to start this off with? I had an experience last night that was too personal to share here, but it reminded me that all of us have blind spots. And when I say blind spots, those of you who operate a vehicle, you know this. You're behind a wheel and you're steering your car, and there's mirrors to the left and to the right, and ideally there's one in the middle of the car that allow you to monitor what's going on behind you. And you may have noticed that these mirrors do not cover the entire spectrum of what's going on around you. Therefore, you have areas that you cannot see, blind spots. What are the blind spots in your perception, Brett? Because I know I have a few.
I have many, I'm sure, and I keep discovering them all the time. And tomorrow, I think Tracy has the same kind of low maintenance garden I have. I often miss a spot too. I'm a little bit difficult I need a mirror, like Christian says, in the car. I try and use a mirror at the back, and every now and again, actually yesterday when I was out, I found down here I had an extra long hair that I forgot to shave, so that was a bit of a spot there as well.
By the way,
yeah.
Checking the spots, right? Actually, I love this. Tamara, I'm sure you meant this metaphorically, because you want to spot those, or you want to check those blind spots, or have somebody spot check them for you if you're missing them, right? And the long hair reminds me of the first time I went to I believe it was a Vietnamese restaurant. And for a second there, I thought the waiter had missed a spot on his face, until that was my blind spot, until I learned later that it is good luck in some Asian cultures if you have a hair growing out of a spot on your face. They don't pluck that, they don't shave that, they let that grow because it's good luck.
Oh man, I've got and blown on my good luck.
Well, are you Vietnamese?
No.
Okay.
No, maybe that's a blind spot. I don't know. I don't think I am.
So how do we make sure we illuminate those blind spots? What can we do to shed light on them? How do we get spot checkers like tomorrow?
Well, we do. We get good friends like Tamara and like all the people that we work around, people that challenge us. In our field, we often use this quote from Edward T. Hall. It says, "Culture hides more than what it reveals, and strangely enough, what it hides most effectively from its own participants." And of course, he says that the job is to understand ourselves first. This is the biggest job, and often we don't really reflect on what's influenced our culture, what's influenced our background, our way of seeing the world. So that is a great place to start. I mean, that's kind of accessible to everybody. We carry our own culture around with us, but we still, even though, I mean, we do it with our clients, we get them to look into some of the influences, their upbringing, their heritage, and things like that, and we give them a bit of a guidepost, a bit of a roadmap into discovering how that might then make them respond and find what they're missing in the other culture. So that's, I mean, it seems it's pretty simplistic on the surface, and really, quite frankly, it is. But it is a really good practice I've found it a wonderful practice to take on, challenge myself all the time, and just kind of, it's a great discovery. Some people get a little bit nervous about it, but it is a great discovery.
I often show a slide with a completely arbitrary pie chart with my clients, and it's completely made up. And the pie chart is, there's 3 pieces of that pie, 2 smaller pieces and 1 huge chunk. In 3 colors. I should have brought it up here. Forgive me. We'll share it with you some other time. And you may have seen it. You may have been on our webinars, and you may have seen it before. So that pie chart says, 1 small piece says what I know. The other small piece says what I don't know, or what I know that I don't know. And the biggest piece of the pie is what I don't even know that I don't know. So this is something that I show, especially to those program participants who come into the training with a preconceived notion of what they need to learn. They come in with I've learned this. I know that I haven't learned this, so that's what I'm here for. And you're here to fill that blank for me. And then I show them that pie chart and say, well, there might be a few things that you aren't even aware of that we're going to cover as well. And those are probably the things you need most.
Right.
And that, of course, depends on the way I phrase it. Sometimes it causes a little bit of a resistance, or a little bit of who is he to tell me that? After all, he was hired to do a job, and blah, blah, blah. And usually after the trainings, it's clear that, thank you for pointing that out. And especially with coaching and training programs that involve North America, professionals coming to the US, there's a lot of things that people outside of the US think they know about America. They think they can call it America and get away with it, and not on my watch, because if you haven't noticed the map, you see it behind me on that banner, there's 2 continents, right? The North and South America. Everybody who lives there is American. So the people in the United States, so when people come to the United States, they have this notion that they already know a lot about it through media consumption or movies, books, whatnot. And then they quickly learn, because I make them, I expose them to that there are things that they haven't paid attention to because it wasn't portrayed to them before. Right. So what does Tamara say here? So when white folks from the US or Canada especially say we don't have culture, it's so frustrating. Exactly. That is a self-deprecating fishing for compliments comment that I've heard so many times, Tamara. We don't have culture. Or even worse, Europeans coming to the US and Canada saying, well, North Americans, they don't have culture because they're such a young country and they refuse to be cultured, whatever that means, by the way. I don't know what that means to be cultured. Well, Brett, to that comment by Tamara, what is culture then if people claim they don't have any?
Yeah, that's an interesting, because I've heard that a lot. I'm glad Tamara brought that up. I've had clients say that, okay, I'm going to this other culture, but we don't really have a culture, and that is this is part of that discovery process. To make them, we talked about this with Vicky Fly Hudson yesterday, and we kind of fleshed this out in terms of opening up the possibility of being able to see what's inside you, right? What it is that has formed you, what it is that has that has framed your points of reference in the world. That's culture, right? Everything is culture. Your like you mentioned earlier, your profession, your age. Tamara is a great example of this. A great leader and mentor for people that in the millennials, literally the millennials mentor. But that doesn't mean that that's exclusive of every other age group. That is understanding that each age group, each gender, each political persuasion, everybody has a culture, the region they grow up with, and so easily. I mean, I find it fairly easy to point to quite a number of things that can be defined as culture, music, tastes in food and things like this. So once you start to kind of do those small little snippets of drawing them into what is a culture, the kind of I would call it the non-threatening types of culture, then perhaps you lead into and say, well, okay, well, let's explore some of the more maybe uncomfortable aspects of this culture, which have formed the way that this society works, and what has caused some people in this society to be left behind, to be challenged, to constantly have to work harder to meet the same standards that somebody else does. And you see, I'm being very generic, because in this case, that would mean different things in different cultures all over the world.
Right.
So that just is a process, and to me, I find it a fun process. It's a great awakening for people and I think it's good work, at least from my point of view, to have the skills to draw people to that self-awareness to start off with. I'm always excited by that.
And if people say we don't have a culture, and we as in North America, it can easily be an escape from facing what some of the tenets of our culture are, or it can be an escape for making the mental exercise to prepare for adjustment, or to make arrangements for finding common ground with people from different cultures. So no matter, and I think it comes down to the definition of what culture is, or what being cultured means. And I think the U.S. society have done a great job. I mean, great, sarcastically, actually an awful job in not acknowledging what their own cultural traits are, and they can be very different in different regions, or age groups, gender, sexual orientation, whatnot, all the brackets we talked about. And that is a blind spot in and of itself, to think that we don't have culture. And examining that can be quite a revelation, and it can be painful as well, as we talked about yesterday on our call. Facing some of those things that come up when you look at your societal traits, your behavioral norms, if you will. Not all of them are pleasing to you, and you don't always agree with them, whatever is the norm, or the default, or the trend of behavior in your culture. And whether you agree with what the trend is or not doesn't really matter. You acknowledge the trend. Either you agree or you disagree with it. It's there. Whether you want to behave like most people in your culture, or you don't want to behave that way, it just confirms that there is that quote unquote default way. And looking at that is an exercise that requires some self-reflection, some self-awareness, as we talked about yesterday, the day before. I've been doing so many of these already, Brett.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I actually think it's incumbent on us, if we're going to go and actually, if we're working with or in other cultures, it's incumbent on us to know, maybe understand what their perception is of us also, and also be ready with this information, this knowledge of your culture, the self-awareness of not just yourself, but also your culture, and the ability to explain, or somewhat, at least not know everything, but at least have the ability to have done some kind of background into your own culture, so that when other people from other cultures might ask you, just through genuine curiosity, about your opinions or your insights into certain things that they have seen, that they may not understand, and they may really be wanting to know, then it is really not a great answer to come up with. Well, that's just got nothing to do with me. It's really not culture. We don't really have a culture like that. Not, you can go to Japan and but look at you guys, got this wonderful culture of sushi and all this kind of stuff. Why it's boring to talk about my culture. But understand, these people want to know about you. They want to know about your culture. They want to know, they want to know where you're from. And when I walk around this society as an Australian, how many times do you think people say, my goodness, I've heard Australia is like this, or I've heard Australia is like that. And the ability to, sometimes I might, I have to pick, you have to pick your mark, right? you can't launch off into a diatribe. But now that I kind of understand a lot of the influences and that kind of thing that drive me personally and my country, so it's much easier. I feel that I'm more comfortable in speaking to it, and I've got some credibility in the area.
I think that's. I want to bring up Tamara's quote again. Here, this one. Find a spot checker. If you're unaware of your blind spots, find a Tamara, find a Brett. You might even find me. Find somebody who helps you check those spots, because once you've got them checked out, you'll feel better, because it will give you a more complete picture. Maybe you'll become aware of things about yourself that others see in you that you weren't aware of, and those things might actually be good. Not every blind spot is hiding something negative. Many of these blind spots actually might hide the beauty in you. So have a chat.
We talked about that with Vicky yesterday. I think bringing out, getting people to understand what's in them, what they already have, right? Which is a great thing. And a lot of this is really joyful stuff, and it can make for some great conversations. And
All right. This was Thursday edition of Two Chaps, Many Cultures. Man, I'm still practicing that announcer voice. Come join us again tomorrow. Tell your friends. Find us on whatever social is your favorite down there. You find us on all of them if you haven't done so yet. Follow us, because we have something for you, and we do bonus stuff, as you may have noticed this week already.
Two bonuses in the first week. I think it's just too generous. I'm becoming self-aware that we're just too generous.
No, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as too much culture.
That's right. Too much culture is never enough.
Nope. So, Two Chaps, Many Cultures, Thursday edition. This is a Brett and Christian mic drop. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Bye.